yes, the Game Awards. That time of year when peak GamerDad energy takes over, and we have all pulled into a digital coliseum filled with trailers, ads doing their best to look like trailers, and, once in a while, an actual award show happening. But let's be honest, you didn't click for Best Ongoing Game. You're here for the big reveals. What's up, everyone? It's Kathan. Grab your Doritos, silence the orchestra, and lock in, because it's time for 10 brand new video game announcements from the Game Awards. Kicking things off at number 10. This one's called It's No Law. Basically, it's a secret society cyberpunk FPS from Neon Giant, the team behind The Ascent, now working under publisher craft. And this isn't one of those flashy trailers that shows nothing either. There's actually a lot here in terms of real gameplay. We get a look at Port Desire, the open city designed specifically for this game. You step into the role of Gray Harker, a former military enforcer carrying plenty of baggage from his past. The story leans hard into cyber noir vibes and feels just as much like an RPG as it does a straight shooter. And yeah, it's clear we've all played cyberpunk territory for sure. There's no release date just yet, but we do know it's planned for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC down the line. Quick pause before we move on. If you're enjoying the video, consider hitting subscribe. A lot of people watching aren't subscribed yet, and doing so really helps the channel out. It also makes sure you don't miss future videos you'll probably enjoy. So thanks a ton if you decide to subscribe. Alright, let's keep things moving. Coming in at number 9, we have Tomb Raider, Legacy of Atlantis, a high-budget reimagining of the original Tomb Raider from 1996. This is a full-on remake, not just a remaster, and it looks absolutely massive. What's kind of wild is that at this point, when I see footage of this game, my first thought is, that looks like Uncharted. And then Uncharted looks like Tomb Raider. These two series have been trading DNA for years now. Honestly, this feels like exactly what you'd want from a modern Tomb Raider remake. And interestingly enough, this isn't the only new Tomb Raider project currently in the works. On the way as well is Tomb Raider Catalyst, although we still don't really know what that actually is yet. For now, it's basically just an announcement, but I wanted to mention it here anyway. They did show a bit of gameplay, but honestly, that wasn't the part that got people fired up. The real excitement is clearly around Legacy of Atlantis. It looks incredible. That one is currently slated for a 2026 release on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. Meanwhile, Tomb Raider Catalyst is targeting 2027. Alright, moving on to number 8. We've got Control Resonant. They're calling this a sequel, but I'm almost to the point where it feels like something else entirely. What we are seeing here, doesn't it look like Jesse Faden working inside the oldest house trying to contain the resonance? Instead, it seems focused on Dylan Faden, Jesse's brother, the antagonist, or at least someone tied closely to whatever the real threat is. And honestly, it's hard to even define a villain here. The resonance itself feels more like a presence, a sound, something alien, almost like an infection spreading through reality. Control has always been weird, but Control Resonant looks about 10 times stranger, especially with what appears to be an altered world event unfolding, without taking place outside of the oldest house, somewhere in Manhattan. And it doesn't seem limited to just the resonance either. I'm honestly not convinced this is a straight sequel. It feels more like the next chapter in Remedy's shared universe, possibly a Control game, but not in the way we're used to. What it actually looks like is something closer to an action RPG, mixed with those chaotic, almost prototype-style abilities. And based on what we're seeing, it might even put you in the role of someone spreading the resonance instead of stopping it, which would make you the bad guy. Maybe. I'm not totally sure yet. Whatever's going on here. It's set to launch on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC, and it's currently lined up for next year. And yeah, you can absolutely count on me playing it. Alright, moving on to number 7, Highguard. This one's coming from Wildlight Entertainment, a studio made up of developers who previously worked on Apex Legends and Titanfall, and they're clearly not playing it safe here. They've thrown a wild-looking shooter into the mix, super fast-paced, packed with insane abilities, over-the-top weapons, and a mix of melee and long-range combat. You play as characters called Wardens, described as arcane gunslingers sent to fight over control of a mythical artifact, at least according to the marketing. Either way, it is pretty clear these developers know exactly what they test redoing when it comes to this kind of shooter, so I'm definitely curious to see where it ends up. The game is launching as a free-to-play title on Steam, Xbox Series consoles, and PS5 on January 26th. Moving on to number 6, we have 4Loop. This one comes from Sony Interactive Entertainment alongside Bad Robot Games. Yes, the studio connected to J.J. Abrams. They finally revealed what they've been working on, and 4Loop is a 4-player tactical sci-fi co-op shooter that basically feels like Left 4 Dead, but set in space. Unlike your standard cookie-cutter co-op shooter, 4Loop really commits to the idea that you and your squad are meant to fail over and over, and that the whole hook, Earth has already fallen to a ruthless alien invasion, and you're dropped into a repeating fight to try and reclaim it. Every time you die, the loop resets, but you carry forward what you've learned. You adapt, tweak your approach, and experiment with different team builds to push a little further each run. It's basically a respawn-centric roguelike blended with a tactical shooter, and honestly, it's a pretty interesting mix. The trailer shows some seriously bizarre alien environments and a lineup of strange, stand-out boss fights. One of them looks like this organic Rubik's Cube-style creature that you have to take down, and yeah, it's wild. What really sold me, though, is how the developers describe the gameplay as failing forward, and I genuinely love that idea. I won't even pretend otherwise. It's really intriguing. 4Loop is confirmed for PS5 and PC, although there's no release date just yet. Moving on to number 5, we have The Free Shepherd, a cute, surprisingly poetic experience. You're not really doing anything, nothing too intense here. You're simply tracking down lost sheep, playing as a loyal and energetic border collie, a dedicated sheepdog whose job is to keep the flock together and guide them safely across a vast, mysterious landscape. It's cozy, plain, and simple. Visually, the trailer does a great job selling that tone. The Free Shepherd comes across as both charming and quietly evocative, with wide open spaces, calm moments to breathe, and hints of some unknown disaster disturbing the peace. Overall, it's a really interesting looking game. It's currently slated to launch on PS5 and PC in 2027, so it's still a long way off, but honestly, Journey with a Dog, I'm in. Alright, moving on to number 4, a brand new Divinity from Larian Studios. There's been a ton of speculation surrounding this one, and now we finally have a proper reveal. At the moment, the game is simply titled Divinity. It's unclear whether this is Divinity, Original Sin 3, or something entirely new. The studio has previously said they weren't planning a direct Original Sin sequel, but whatever this is, it looks larger and more ambitious than that. In fact, it's being described as even bigger in scope than Baldur's Gate 3, which is a pretty massive claim. Kind of wild. Think classic Divinity-style role-playing, but paired with the much more ambitious world-building and epic scale we saw in Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, I am absolutely on board for that. Moving on to number 3, we have Ace Combat 8, Wings of Thieves. The last Ace Combat entry launched back in 2019, with the Nintendo Switch version arriving in 2024. And with the series hitting its 30th anniversary, there's honestly no better time to officially announce a new entry. Obviously, this looks like a fully modernized take on Ace Combat, and we honestly don't know a ton yet about what really sets this one apart, beyond the fact that it looks way better than any previous Ace Combat 8, Wings of Thieves. Visually, it's a huge leap forward. Wings of Thieves is currently planned for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC, with a release window set for sometime in 2026. Alright, moving on to number 2, Star Wars Galactic Racer. This one was a genuine surprise reveal. It definitely gives off strong Star Wars Episode Woodborne racer vibes, but with a much larger variety of vehicles and tracks. Episode 1 Racer is pure nostalgia, even if it never fully reached its potential. This new project comes from Fuse Games. Elk! It looks like it's setting up something called the Galactic League, an unsanctioned underground racing circuit spread across the galaxy. You'll be tearing through locations like Jakku, weaving between crashed Star Destroyers and all kinds of chaotic scenery along the way. There's a lot going on visually, and it looks properly wild. What really stands out, though, is the talent behind it. The development team includes people who've worked on Burnout and Need for Speed, which is a huge deal. That's why this doesn't feel like a cheap Star Wars reskin. This is a proper racing game, built by people who actually know how to make racing games, and that is exciting. There's currently a 2026 release window, and it's set to arrive on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. And finally, at number 1, Fate of the Old Republic. This is a massive new single-player, narrative-driven action RPG, and no, this isn't just another Ubisoft-style open world or a multiplayer-heavy blaster experience. This is a story-first journey that takes us back to the Old Republic era, the distant past of the galaxy far, far away. The game is being developed by Archanaut Studios in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. Fate of the Old Republic brings back Casey Hudson, the veteran director, best known as the creative force behind Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, and the Mass Effect trilogy, reconnecting him with the franchise that helped define his career. Knights of the Old Republic was a landmark game, and without it, Mass Effect as we know it probably wouldn't exist, and we all know how massive Mass Effect became. This new project is being positioned as a spiritual successor to Knights of the Old Republic, but it's clearly not just a recycled take on old ideas. What we're seeing looks far more ambitious, something big, bold, and potentially game-changing, a modern take on that classic BioWare-style RPG, updated to match what players actually want from that kind of experience today. And honestly, thinking back, when Knights of the Old Republic originally launched, it came out right in the middle of the prequel era backlash. I'm going to be completely real with you here. That timing mattered. Knights of the Old Republic was one of those moments where people collectively went, oh, right, Star Wars can actually be incredible. Looking back now, I appreciate the prequels more than I did back then. But at the time, KOTOR felt like a course correction, and that's exactly what I'm hoping happens again here. Republic is legendary, and this absolutely looks like it has the potential to join that conversation as well. We don't have any concrete release details yet, although I'd expect it to land on just about every major platform when it's ready. Either way, this one is genuinely exciting. But we're not done yet. I've got a few bonus games to throw in. First up is Resident Evil Requiem, which, yes, is essentially Resident Evil 9. This looks like a major step forward for the series, while also looping back to its roots. We're returning to Raccoon City, now depicted as a ruined, post-outbreak wasteland, complete with a massive crater left behind by a very familiar explosion. It's an interesting direction, especially since Capcom seems to be directly tying, no, everything circles back to Umbrella, and this time, they're leaning into a dual protagonist setup featuring Leon S. Kennedy alongside FBI agent Grace Ashcroft. And if you were looking for a game that's fully banking on your familiarity with Raccoon City and that classic Resident Evil atmosphere, this is absolutely it. At the same time though, it also feels bigger, more polished, and more ambitious than anything the series has done before. Resident Evil Requiem is set to launch in February next year on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC. Next up, we have TankRat, a vehicular action game that it blends that scrap metal chaos, Yukoko, normally associate with something like Twisted Metal, even if it exists and it's been a long time since we have seen anything like that, while also building directly on an earlier tank-focused project. The game comes from Alpha Channel, the team behind Tankhead, and TankRat is essentially a follow-up that expands on those vehicular combat foundations. You're facing off against all kinds of threats here. Mech-like enemies, massive mechanical snakes, rolling boss encounters. The whole thing just screams chaos. The best way to describe it is Mad Max energy colliding with Mech Warrior. It honestly looks really cool. Apparently, there's also a deep customization layer here. You're not just blowing things up. You're rebuilding your tank using scrap and wreckage you collect along the way. Honestly, that sounds like a killer concept. If it plays as well as it looks, this could be something special. TankRat is currently set to launch on PC and PS5 in spring 2026. Next up is Hantos, the latest project from Frictional Games, the studio behind Soma and Amnesia. This one feels like a spiritual successor to that style of psychological horror, but it's clearly trying to carve out its own identity. You play as Aditi Amani, an engineer exploring a deeply unsettling for an abandoned Samsara Moon hotel, a repurposed facility built on top of the ruins of a failed lunar mining colony. The place looks deeply unsettling, packed with tight corridors and oppressive spaces that immediately lean into sci-fi mystery and psychological tension. This very much feels like a slow burn horror experience. That said, Frictional Games isn't just repeating the Soma formula and calling it a day. There's a strong focus here on player choice and consequence, immersive system-driven mechanics, and puzzles that actually feel meaningful instead of existing just to pad things out. Hantos is currently planned for PS5 and Xbox, Series, and PC sometime next year. And finally, we have Stupid Never Dies, an action RPG packed with stylish combat and zombies. You play as Davey, a down-on-his-luck zombie living in a world where monsters are basically just everyday citizens. Your human love, Julia, has been frozen in time, and it's up to you to slash, bash, and, blast your way forward to fix things. That sounds right. And honestly, it looks right too. The game throws you into a bunch of wild dungeons filled with bizarre, over-the-top creatures. Visually, it kind of gives off hi-fi Rush vibes, but definitely more action RPG focused. And as far as we know, there's no rhythm mechanic here at all. It's just stylish, fast, and really cool to look at. That one's set to launch on PC and PS5 in 2026. And that's going to do it for today. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I am genuinely curious which game stood out to you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a great time to fix that. We upload new videos every single day, and subscribing is the best way to catch them early. So hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and as always, thanks so much for sticking around and watching. I'm Cathan. If you want to go a step further, you can join the 1% Club by hitting the join button and check out The Cathan Show. We were genuinely having a great time over there.